I never imagined a single sentence could unravel everything I had built in my marriage. We had been together for 5 years, married for 2, and I believe our life was steady, predictable, the kind of stability most people call secure. She had always joked about timelines and expectations, but I never thought she would mean it. That evening, I returned home after a long day, expecting the familiar warmth of routine. Instead, her words hit me like a cold gust, sharp and unrelenting. "Marriage is a year, Max," she said, smiling as if it were a harmless observation. I froze, letting the words settle. My mind raced, trying to parse what she meant. Was it a joke? A subtle declaration of discontent I had never anticipated? Her tone carried a certainty that left no room to ignore it. Suddenly, the foundation of our shared life felt unstable, the walls of our apartment unfamiliar and cold. I took a slow breath, careful not to react impulsively. She continued, laughing lightly, expecting protest, confusion, or argument, but I remained still. I nodded, letting silence stretch long enough for the weight of her words to land. For a moment, her confident smile faltered. That hesitation was my first clue that her intentions were far more complicated than she had revealed. Then came a revelation from her best friend, a truth she had never shared directly, one that changed the context of everything. It wasn't delivered to confront me, but in the course of a casual conversation, I overheard later. "She's afraid of being trapped," her friend said, voice soft, almost pitying. The pieces fell into place. The erratic comments, the sudden withdrawal from things we once enjoyed together, the laughter that never reached her eyes. It wasn't about me or the life we had built. It was about a fear she had carried silently, nurtured over years, a wall I hadn't known existed. I stayed calm, letting the words sink in. There was no anger, no confrontation, only clarity. I understood the situation fully, and I knew what I had to do. When she finally turned to me, expecting confusion or pleading, I simply said, "I see." No raised voice, no dramatic accusations, just a calm acknowledgement of what had already become clear. She looked startled, as if expecting me to collapse under the weight of her admission. But I didn't. I had already processed the facts and accepted the inevitable conclusion. Walking away was not just an option. It was the only reasonable choice. That night I left. Every movement was deliberate, my mind steady, aware that the consequences of staying would be heavier than the temporary discomfort of leaving. The next morning, the apartment was quiet in a way I had never noticed before. The absence of forced smiles and polite conversation felt almost liberating. I packed only what I needed, leaving behind a remnant of a life that no longer aligned with the reality I now faced. Her texts and calls came later, each one carrying confusion, regret, and a faint trace of desperation. I read them calmly. My responses were minimal, measured, deliberate. There was no argument, no room for negotiation. The truth had been revealed, irreversible, and my actions reflected the clarity I had gained. I didn't berate. I didn't plead. I simply moved forward, honoring the decision that had already been made. Days passed, and with each one, the sense of relief grew. Freedom was quiet, measured, entirely my own. I realized that peace comes not from revenge or proving a point, but from understanding, acceptance, and refusing to remain where authenticity is absent. She reached out again later, messages hinting at reflection and realization. I did not respond, not out of cruelty, but because the path I had chosen required presence in my own life, not hers. The lesson was clear. Composure, emotional control, and decisive action preserve dignity even when trust is broken. As I walked away from the apartment, the street seemed brighter, the air lighter, the future suddenly open. I carried no resentment, only the knowledge that sometimes the strongest response is the simplest. Acknowledge, accept, and walk away. In that quiet, deliberate movement, I discovered calm I had never known I was capable of until everything I thought I needed had vanished.